Let's start with this CEO conversation. It was kind of an interesting one. Mark was vulnerable enough to share this, and it got me thinking, and I want to talk about it. So he said, hey, has anyone ever gotten nervous because you aren't really doing any actual work and you're simply directing where the company goes and holding the vision? We bootstrapped from nothing, and I used to actually have technical skills like copywriting and running ads. Over time, we hired team members who can do all these things better, and I've only gotten worse because I'm not practicing. And I understand my job does evolve over time. And the best thing for the company is for me to not be in the weeds, but to rather sit in the driver's seat, as Ezra says. He's actually got that analogy wrong. I say you got to navigate and not drive, TBD. However, I just had the thought exercise the other day thinking to myself, if I didn't have the current company, what the hell would I do? And I feel like I can't do anything that particularly well anymore except for delegating my to-do list. Does that not freak anyone out? There's an interesting thing that happens when you have a successful production cycle. In Mark's case, he's got this business that's going well. You start to associate your identity with this production cycle. Like, you are the successful entrepreneur. That is who you are in your friend circle. That's what you talk about. That's who your friends become. Like, it becomes a part of who you are. And they've done these tests where they show the brain activity of a mother looking at her baby, and then they show the brain activity of a business owner looking at their logo, and the brain is lit up in the same spots. So you become emotionally attached to the brand. And this is also the reason that all business brokers say that most business owners overvalue their brands, is because they're emotionally attached to them. And it can be scary to consider, what would I do if this thing were to go away? Because you have these thoughts like, and everybody goes through this phase. Did I get lucky? Could I repeat this success? I'm not actually in the weeds anymore. And so would I be able to be successful if I had to start from scratch and all this kind of stuff? Well, the good news is you don't have to start from scratch unless you sell the thing or you tank it. You're in blue ribbon, you're unlikely to tank it. And if you do sell it, you're going to have some money to start from scratch. So the fear of a future reality that doesn't exist is just a waste of time. But okay, worth confronting. Hey, what would I do? It's a valuable question. First of all, you would do just fine, right? You've done all that stuff once before, and you can do it all again if you had to. If you were called to, if you needed to, you could learn all that stuff again. You could get into the weeds. But it's a lot like giving me onions, tomatoes, jalapeno, garlic, salt, pepper, and telling me to make a salsa, and doing the same thing to a chef who's been doing it for 20 years. The chef who's been doing it for 20 years is going to make a better salsa, right? And so there's this skill set of being able to see the big picture, of being able to see how everything fits together, and being able to direct the processes, right? The answer is, ideally, you would not go back to becoming a specialist. You would stay a high-level generalist. The responsibility and intensity of being the end of the line for the operation is not something that most people want. And frankly, it's not a fit for most personality types. It's very fucking intense to be the end of the line for everybody's salary, for success or failure, for the overhead, for the risk, for the liability, for all of it. It's like, you, as the person who is taking responsibility for guaranteeing the operation, you're the end of the line. And that's why that role has the biggest upside. It's also got the biggest downside. It's also got the most volatility and emotional intensity and stress. But when things are successful, it also comes with the biggest upside. So it's biggest downside, biggest upside. That's the reason. And the answer is, ideally, you'd play your same role. You've now gone from do-it-yourself entrepreneur to business owner who has systems and processes and delegation and team and infrastructure. And you don't want to go back. You're good at the position you're playing, which is seeing where the puck is going, that you have all the resources you need to get where you want to go, making sure that you've got the right team members in the right places focused on the right things to achieve the goals, and that they're all in sync. It shouldn't scare you that you no longer are a technically sound. Look, Laura on this call is a far better social media director than I ever was, and far more skilled than I ever was at social. But she still relies on me for feedback, strategy, guidance, accountability, someone to bounce things off of. She's better at her job with me in my role. Doesn't mean that it's not an either or, and it's not a, I need this to be good at this. It's like, no, you're good right now. What you're good at is being the navigator, being the person who's setting the direction. You're not piloting the plane. You are the software that the plane is using to see where it came from and where it's going. So I think the answer there is like, if you run the mental exercise of what would I do if I had to start over? Well, ideally, you wouldn't start over running the Facebook ads, writing the copy, building the technology stack. And by the way, you could if you wanted to. You're smart, you're capable, you have the skill set that's needed, which is the willingness to put your attention consistently in a particular area over time. So you could do it, but you don't want to. And you don't want to worry that you're no longer a skilled Facebook advertiser, because you can hire that. You can train that. So what you want to do is play the role that only you can play. That's my thoughts on that. Is number one, you could go back and learn all that stuff and get good at it again. But actually that is the antithesis of your goal. And it's anti your best use of your time. And it's actually anti the best use of anybody on your team's time, because what they want is to work in an organization. And we're going to talk about this in just a second, where they can excel and grow their skill set and have a path for growth and have fun and do something meaningful. So let's look at this diagram here. We've got the strategy up here. So this is your value creation plan. This is your 1 year, 5 year plan. Like when I told you guys, we can go back to the blue ribbon call at the beginning of 2020. It was like the first or second call. I said, listen, this is everything we are doing this year. This is our strategy for the year. And every year in Blue Ribbon, I've done at the first call of the year, this is the big vision for the year. Ideally, your strategy does not change very much. If your strategy is changing on a monthly basis, something is horribly wrong. Ideally, your executive leadership doesn't change very much, right? Like, for example, Pepine is my CTO and president. Colleen is my COO, and Boris is my CMO. If any of those people leave before I'm done with Boom, either I sell it to a strategic partner in 5 years for hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever, I've done something horribly wrong. Or they've gotten sick or something's happened in their family. But like, if they left because of something that was wrong with any one of these things under here, tasks, culture, organization, or people, something is really bad. So ideally, you're not having turnover in strategy, but once a year, and you're not having turnover in executive leadership unless you're adding an executive to the team. So the executive leadership also dictates the strategy. So these two go hand in hand, and they're long-term plays. Now, should you be meeting with your executive team once a quarter, revisiting the year strategy, looking back at the past quarter, seeing how you did in relationship to that? Yes. But ideally, not much changes in the big vision strategy. Then we have critical tasks. Critical tasks are like basically anything that we need to do or decide. So basically, in any given department, what specifically is happening? Your core processes. For Laura's department, that's the emails that go out, when, why, to whom, the sales that happen, when, why, to whom, the social media content that goes out, when, why, to whom, and who's doing it, right? So the decisions that need to be made for that, like, for example, are we doing everything that we need to be doing to be successful in email marketing? What's coming down the pipe in advertising that maybe has us have to modify our strategy, i.e. iOS 14, Google removing the cookies, et cetera. Now that we've added Amazon, we're going live on Amazon with Boom in 2 weeks. Are there any tasks or processes that we didn't have before that we need to have, like Amazon specific customer support, Amazon specific supply chain management? Do we need to let go of anything? Are we doing shit that we shouldn't be doing anymore? So the critical tasks are connected to the formal organization, right? You can see the line between critical tasks and formal organization here, because the answers to your questions and critical tasks should be looked at weekly and monthly. Same with formal organization. Your formal organization is connected to your critical task because it's basically like, this is the stuff we're doing, and this is the way in which we're organized to do it. For example, do we need to hire somebody to be available for live chat in the European time zone because we're establishing a fulfillment network in Europe, right? So when we're setting specific tasks for specific categories and departments, we then look to the organization to say, who's currently doing that? Are they doing a good enough job? Are they happy with it? Do we have SOPs? Do we need anybody else to be doing this? Is there more? You got to be looking at your organization as you're adding and modifying your critical tasks for each department. Then, anytime that we are making decisions, right? Because by the way, critical tasks and formal organization are the hardware. They're the computer. People and culture are the software. They're the operating system. So anytime that we're making decisions in the hardware and the actual, like we're changing the structure of the computer itself, that impacts the software, right? Because then we're going to need a different operating system to run on that computer. So that's people and culture. And the interesting thing about people is if you add people, it affects people. When teams are heavy on conversations about critical tasks and they're kind of focused fully on like what are the tasks, they usually aren't thinking about the structure and the people who are going to do those tasks, and it kind of upsets the balance. And so the art of using this diagram is that you need to think about each one, but you can't think about them in isolation. So for example, if we bring someone on, like for example, we're bringing on this person to be Colleen's junior project manager, her assistant. What does that mean for the culture? What does it mean for the people who have to train that person? Are there other critical tasks that this person who's coming on could do outside of what we've thought about doing for them? I just had this experience where I interviewed this woman for Zipify yesterday, who is a customer. She would be doing, like, we're moving up market essentially with one-click upsell. One-click upsell has become the best upsell application for plus merchants on Shopify. Everybody wants it. And it's like definitely the best one of what all the available options now. And so we're doing a lot more, sales calls with people, doing work for them, getting it set up. Like there's just a lot more concierge support that's needed when you go plus. And this woman has a job at a very high powered organization. And she came to interview with us. And she said, yeah, I heard from a friend that working for you guys is just more fun and more meaningful and more relaxed. And like, I want to be a part of that culture. And that brings me to the culture, which is, and I'll tell you guys, I'll give you a reminder of how we set our culture in a second. But the culture is essentially the alignment of the team around thought processes, ideologies, and value propositions. And if all these four things are in alignment, that's what gets you performance. And I get that this is overly simplified, but it's actually, and it's obvious, but it's hard to do in practice. If this system, strategy, leadership, critical task, culture, formal organization, and people sits in balance, you will thrive. And if you can do this, you'll scale much easier than if you're making decisions in isolation in any one of these particular categories. So I recommend looking at each one of these categories once a month. And hey, like, let's hire this person. Let's think about what would they do? Who would they report to? Is there any impact on the long form, on the culture of bringing them in, et cetera? And so let me give you a sense of our culture. And by the way, you see over here on the left is the input, and over here is the output, right? Your history of your company, your vision, your mission, your values, your market forces, things that are going on, goes through this diagram. And on the other side, you should have sales, profit, or turnover of people leaving, customer acquisition costs going up if things are screwed up. So what goes in will come out depending on how well this system works. And so I'll tell you a little bit about our culture. I set this up by design. I wanted that the way we acquire good talent is people tell other people they've never experienced a workplace like this, and high-level people with high-level positions at other companies come knocking on my door saying, do you have an opening? Because I want to work with you, because I have not heard of a place like this before, where people are happy, they're well compensated, they're not micromanaged, and they have autonomy and freedom and agency, and they're doing something that's fun, and they get to participate. And that's happened over the years. Many of my best people have come from recommendations of other team members being like, hey, I've never had this experience working at a place like this. Let me just give you a little bit of how we pull this off and have it that people are excited about working for us. And our job applications are constantly overwhelmingly full. We have 3 priorities. 1, have fun. That doesn't mean screw around. It means do what it takes to show up to your job whole. Take care of your body, take care of your things outside of work, your relationship, your hobbies, your personal life, sleep well. Do what it takes to show up to work as a full cup that can pour. That's on you. Then bring a positive attitude and look to make it a party and enjoy yourself, because you don't know how long you have. You could get sick. People die. Cindy Joseph died. You get hit by a bus. This whole idea that you're promised a long life is not accurate. So if you're not enjoying yourself, you've missed the point of this game we call life, in my opinion. So number 1, have fun. That's our goal. Number 2, make good stuff that truly serves the world. Make good shit. If you are making products that don't have integrity, that aren't actually good, what are you doing? What is the point? You're not going to have a long-term business if you're doing that. And also, you aren't going to feel good about yourself. So it's like, do what it takes to continually have your products get better by listening to customer feedback, by looking to innovate, by paying attention to market forces, by asking questions like, are we sustainable? Are we, et cetera. 3, be profitable. And if you can pull that off, you can have a good time, make good stuff, and be profitable at any scale, 100 grand a year, 200 grand a year, 500 grand a year, $1 million a year, whatever it is, you've won the game we call business. Everybody's focused on scale. Scale is wonderful. Obviously, I'm trying to make $100 million liquid. So I'm interested in scale, but not at the expense of having a good time and making good stuff. So you've won the game if you're doing those things and you're profitable. Okay. So that's like our driving force behind what are we up to in business. Okay. When somebody comes in, this is what we tell them. Hey, number one, we want to make sure that you are comfortable. Do you have a desk? Do you have a place to work? Do you have a computer that works? Do you have a quiet room? Like, are you working on a couch? Are you able to be comfortable while you're working? And can we support you in that? First question. Second, this corporate hierarchy is a fun concept. And obviously it exists, and you need a corporate structure and you need people at every level of the game, but there's a level at which it's bullshit. Here's what I mean. There only is the entire system. The business works with everything, right? There is no isolation. Take away customer support, your business is broken. Take away product, your business is broken. Take away marketing, your business is broken. It's like an orange. Can you isolate the vitamin C out of an orange? Well, yeah, in a pill form, but is it as effective as eating vitamin C in an orange? No. You have only the whole organization. And every piece of that corporate structure is as important as every other piece, right? If you remove sleep, you die. If you remove water, you die. If you remove food, you die. You only have the whole organization. So what we tell people is, listen, you're the only person who can see what you can see from your vantage point. You're the only one who has the lens you have. And what we want to know what you see. If you see a way you could be having more fun, tell us. Or you could be enjoying your work life more, we want to know. If you see a way that we could be serving our customers better, we want to know. If you see a way in which we could be making better products, we want to know. Like, tell us. We may not take the feedback every time, but people feel this sense of agency and autonomy and ability to direct the ship. They feel like they can be at cause for changing the operation. And that is very freeing. That has people feeling like they have an impact on what's going on, much more committed. The other thing that we do is we make sure that every person has some kind of a growth vision. We ask them, hey, what are you interested in? Are you interested in management? Are you interested in advertising, copywriting, social media? We're much better at this with Smart Marketer and Zipify, by the way, because there's clear paths there. What are you interested in, and how can we support you in getting there? Do we need to provide you with trainings? Like, we want to make sure that people understand that there's a place for them to go. We build hierarchies in our customer support, because customer support's the toughest division, right? It usually has the highest turnover. It's the hardest place to graduate out of, although we do our best to graduate people up the corporate ladder. So we make positions that give people education, growth opportunities, and support in reaching their goals within their work career and without. We also do our best to be as generous as we possibly can with compensation. We pay fair for whatever the position is. And if you can consider everything, there's no better place in the world to work than here. That you would not want to leave working at our company for any other company for any reason, right? And I think we've only had 2 people ever leave. One person retired and the other person had a second kid and decided to be a full-time mom. And we fired like 4 or 5 people, but nobody's ever left because they wanted a job somewhere else. And we give, paid sick leave, paid vacation, 401k, health benefits, paid holidays, and we're chill. We're never asking people to work 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. Now, leadership, sure. Leadership is going to put it in sometimes, but they're also going to have more flexibility in taking time off and stuff. So that is how we create this culture where you get people banging down your door. We're not micromanaging people. We're setting clear expectations. We're giving them clear accountability and guidance and support. And so I think culture ultimately at scale, and culture is such a buzzword, everybody's throwing it around, and it's kind of like doesn't mean anything on one level because there's so many, it's so nebulous. But in my opinion, culture is, how do people feel about the organization and the people they work with and their job? And how enthusiastic are they to show up to work in the morning? And what kind of an attitude do they bring? And sometimes you get somebody who's kind of a pain in the ass. and you either have, and who's very skilled, but kind of a pain in the ass. You got a decision to make. Harder to manage those people. Do you let them go, or do you figure out how to roll them in and deal with their intensity? And that's going to come up too. Not everybody's just easy to manage. Culture doesn't matter as much in the beginning. Like, a lot of people just ignore culture and they think it's all about critical tasks, formal organization, and people, and then strategy and executive leadership at the top. But culture ultimately at scale, and that's why the CEO of Netflix keeps writing these books on it, right? It's like, at scale, it's the most important thing in your business. So that is my rant. Let's see a couple comments we have. It's important to set this up before you start increasing your headcount dramatically. I recommend doing this with your early employees, even if that means doing it before hiring the big guns, or those big guns that will fill the culture vacuum and assert yourself. As founders, you don't want this. You want them mapping to your culture. Yeah, and it's true. And people will pick up on your lingo. They'll copy your style of communicating. They will model the leaders. So it's important that you show up in a way. Where do you pull your pay research from? We ask people when we interview them, what are their salary expectations? We have very clear starting salaries for most positions, right? Like, if you're starting in support and you're green, you're going to start at like basically $18 an hour. If it's like let's say we're hiring a social media director, we're not, we have Laura, but let's say we would go and look on Glassdoor and look on, industry websites. We'd call around to blue ribboners, find out what we're paying. We'd do the research in terms of what are our friends paying? What is the going rate from someone with, and I kind of have a sense at this point. I know I've been in this industry for 15 years. I know what a copywriter makes, what an advertiser makes, what a social media director makes, what a support person makes, what a project manager makes, what an executive leadership person makes. I know the salary ranges off the back of my hand. I could tell you, name a position, I will tell you the salary range. I've been hiring, I have 120 employees. I know what the ranges are for given positions. So if you're interested, ask me and I will tell you what the range is. Someone just asked, what's the range for media buyers in the group? And I posted the range. So I also have a sense at this point. Can you explain your hiring process? Where do you find your candidates and how do you screen them? Candidates, we put a job application up. We have everybody on our team share it with their social network. I post it out on to my social. Sometimes we email our list. Sometimes we go out to friends who work at other companies or who we know have connections in the industry, and we have them post it out. And a lot of times we get recommendations from people who already work for us.